Hey y'all! Well, this is going to be a different pace than my normal videos. So this is going to be my appraisal and marketing tool. So since I'm closing down my consignment business, I've decided to build this course for you guys in order to advance your own hobby, if this is still a hobby for you. If this is more of a business, this is a perfect tool for it. Let me start with a little introduction. Are you having a hard time selling your collectibles at market price? Do you hear a lot, I can't be the buyer and the seller when trying to peddle your wares? Are you new to collecting and don't know what a fair price is to buy something nice for your collection? I'm here to help. The tool I am about to lay out in this course will help everyone from beginners to seasoned pros. So I'm breaking this up into easy to understand segments. I will have a PDF document outlining all of this, as well as a video portion to walk you through this. If there's any online component, I'll have a walkthrough of that too, like the eBay Seller Hub. So you'll see the screenshot of where I'm going through what I'm clicking, and I'll have a voiceover for that. So this is coming out, and then a couple reasons. Unfortunately, some people have been taking advantage of this service that I offer for free, unfortunately. And another reason is consignment's a lot of work, and not really enough to justify keeping it going, because I don't want to charge outrageous rates. I charge a pretty reasonable rate compared to eBay, auction houses, and other consignment people that I know. And lastly is time. The museum has taken a different course. Facebook has changed, so I'm building school. YouTube is wrapping up its initial year, and I'm making decisions of all that, and all that takes time, a lot of time. And I'm, of course, married, got to keep the wife happy, got to keep the pups fed and played with and all that. So this is what I'm doing. I think this course will benefit a lot of people if you are willing to spend the investment. And I hope this is really worth it for you guys. I'm going to make this as detailed as possible and as timely as possible. So even if you're buying this a year after this comes out, it's still going to be relevant information for you. It's going to be skills, it's going to be tools and resources. And if I have to update stuff, I'll send an update out, and I have a special email for my courses that you can email me, and I know that you bought my course, and I'll reply to you right away. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this course. And the very first step is research. So we'll go over to that segment next. Step 1, research. So one can't properly appraise a collection without knowing what it is. This will always be the first step. So it's really good for you to always take a step back and realize what you have before trying to research this and putting your final think of this is what it is. Now, when you are doing the research, if you've taken college courses, especially in the sciences, you have a step up from everybody, because you want to vet your sources, industry standards matching two sources to verify items. Sources can be found online, books, guides, libraries, historians, and museums. Why is this important? Because you might find one thing that says this is just a general old boring plate, and then you come across another information that goes, oh, this is the number one plate because the blocking for this plate started at 5001. Now you got conflicting information, you need a tiebreaker. And sometimes it's important to go beyond the two sources. Because you might find 5 or 6 and everything is contradicting each other, so you really want to focus and find the true thing of what you're researching. For the best example I could probably say is neighborhood electric vehicle plates for Wisconsin. There's 2 known, very difficult to track down the numbering system. It's a very difficult process. Well, at least it was for me. Because there wasn't much information. They were discontinued because of the low speed plates. Cities got just a hair jump on the state, and it was just kind of a jumbled mess. But I digress. Sources, concerns. I'm going to say this because, dealing with a lot of people in our community, they'll jump to conclusions based on certain things. So, one, you got to understand law, and then understand what was actually produced. So you can have a law in the book that says, we're going to make this license plate this way, this time. Did that actually go through to the prison and DMV, and did that actually get done on time and as intended? A lot of times, yes. Sometimes, not so really. Understand collectors might not have all the information. We are human. We gather information from sources, and we like to take them at their word. For example, playroom supervisor versus retired playroom supervisor. The current playroom supervisor is going to be told what the other people in the office has told him, and versus the retired supervisor who actually produced some prototypes and samples, he knows the true reason. That's kind of, sometimes you have to dig down a little bit deep to find what the truth is on some of these really weird plates and prototypes. Google AI and other AIs is not your friend and is often wrong. AI just pulls what it can find. So these AI models go out and they take information on the web. The web is apparently wrong. Like, there's a lot of wrong information out there. There's a lot of fighting and bickering, and all it does is it goes out and finds things, and it just kind of regurgitates it to you in a pretty font. Be careful of that, because I've used AI on simple things to see if it would work. It doesn't most of the time. Let's see here. Published books can have wrong information. Unfortunately, authors make mistakes. They probably used the best information that they had at the time. This is why it's taken me so long to develop my book. I have what's written in law, what's written in statute, and what plates you can find. For example, Special X. Bill's book says 1955. Law says 1955. But we found a 1954. It is what it is. And there could be an issue with fiscal year versus calendar year? Could be. I'm not really sure about that one. And DMV published information has contained errors. One of the famous ones is the little blue book with the undated ranges. There's a mistake in there. Someone's gotten caught on eBay, had different information. The buyer was using that blue book and filed a case to return it because it was right on the edge. And the buyer was wrong, the seller was right, but eBay sided on the buyer. So guy had issues. So yeah, there's a lot of things you have to do to vet your sources, to make sure everything's right. So that's your biggest hurdle, but that's always your step one. Figure out what you have. Because you can have a rare, very nice cabin plate and think it's a $25 plate, and boom, you sell it and it's gone. Because that person on the other end, if you're listing on eBay or any platform, will go, wait a minute, that's a very rare plate, and that's a very good price. So I see that on eBay all the time. Most people don't shop eBay because it's overpriced and all that. Well, 90% of it is, but 10% isn't. Especially buy it nows. I've caught low digits for being very reasonable. I've caught very oddballs for very reasonable. I've caught cabin plates for very reasonable. It just happens, you know. So that is the research portion. I can't hold your hand through all of this. I can't take the time to videotape every single license plate known to man, so you can just click a button and I'll fast forward to the cabins, and then I can talk through the rarity, scarcity, and all that, unfortunately. But there is a lot of material online, on my YouTube, in my Facebook. As we're building school, there will be a lot of information, and I hope to have data depositories in school that you can go to and use as guides and all that. So there's research out there, there's resources out there, and there's very good collectors and historians to lean on. But to be honest, 90% of the plates you're going to be selling are going to be pretty black and white. It's going to be, oh, this is a firefighter plate. Oh, this is a graphic plate. Oh, I need to find out when it started. You know, there's information, especially if you look at my A to Z Wisconsin Graphic Series. It's out there. It's easy information to find. So yeah. I hope you can digest this information, kind of see where I'm getting at. But this is why I also have that email. So if you do have questions, if you come across something that just stumps you, send me an email, send me a photo. Photos help a lot, especially in this section of your journey of appraising and marketing these plates or other collectibles. Because really, it's the same thing if you're talking about license plates, baseball cards, coins, you name it. These are the steps. Are things a little bit different? Your sources might be different, your collectors will be different, and your historians will be different. But otherwise, everything's the same. So after this, we'll pop into the appraisal section of this course. We're talking about appraisal next. So, how do you appraise a license plate? Or really any collectible in that matter? There's a number of ways. We have hardcore data. So you're looking at like the eBay seller tool, where you can look up 3 years of ended listings, sold listings. There's checking out flea markets and understanding what's priced, but you gotta also understand what has sold. So it's sometimes peeking over people's shoulders, seeing what they're paying for plates. Same thing at meets, flea markets. Each market has a different threshold of value. So like your eBay and your antique stores, you'll squeak out a higher price, but there's more fees. But I digress. We'll talk about that in the last section. But appraisal. So for right now, it's going to be the eBay Seller Hub tool. And what I will do is I will do a screenshot of logging into eBay, finding the appraisal tool. You have to switch it because I think it defaults 30 days, switch it up to 3 years, run your reports, and get your data. So that it will be your easiest, fastest way. So we've already logged in. I didn't want to show my credentials, so here we go. We're going to go down to selling. I'm going to click off the pop-up, of course, and we're going to go up to the research tab, product research. Mine's set to 3 years, but look, you can do 7 days, up to 3 years, whole bunch of intervals for you. Now, I've been talking about Wisconsin camping plates a lot in this video, so that's what I'm going to search for. And it's going to think and look at all this data. So we get a date range, average price, range, average shipping, free shipping, sell-through rate, total sellers. I'm going to scroll down so you can see all the information is here for you at your fingertips. Looking at what has sold, for how much, if it's auction, fixed price, shipping, how many sold, total sales, and then date sold. Pretty straightforward. Something you can refer back to many times. It's here. I'd save it if it's an odd category, but you can do a whole bunch of filters, of course. That's really about it. Are there other tools? Of course. Let me pop over. So I had to look this up. There's WorthPoint. Everyone knows WorthPoint, right? You search something and it goes, hey, this thing's sold. Want to see how much it sold for? Looking at their plans, their all access plan is $450 a year. And I'll have a link in the online documentation to go and see it. That's a lot. Granted, that's a lot for beginners, that's a lot for casual sellers, that's a lot for using this tool to shop. Because you can also use this tool to be a buyer. Because you can research it all ahead and see what's a fair price, what they're selling at, and then going into the market knowing where your floor is and where your ceiling is and trying to get something at a decent price for a decent condition. So granted, this tool works both ways. Works for the seller, works for the buyer. It's just the people who are smart enough to buy the course to use it. So that's a big thing. You can try going on Facebook Marketplace to see what's selling. That's hard. They really don't have finished listings. You can see what's being offered, seeing what's selling quickly because it disappears. You can check Facebook groups. So a lot of the deal or no deal groups, you go in, you check listings, like say you found a plate that you really liked, look through those comments, see what the seller took, and then you can start building a range of what is it selling on Facebook, what is it selling on eBay. Flea markets is hard because you can't really see it unless you're looking over someone's shoulder while they're paying. But this is all going to relate to the last section. But also you can check prices at your local license plate meets, at your national conventions, and also behind closed doors. I'm privy to a lot of this information because I'll get a message from a collector and say, hey, I'm trying to buy this plate. What is it worth? I'm like, okay, I'll look at it and I'll give them my opinion, maybe run some numbers, show them some screenshots. And then 20 minutes later, I'll get another message from someone else saying, hey, I'm selling this plate. What do you think I should sell it for? I'm like, oh, you have a. So that happens a lot. I'll be in the middle without people actually realizing that they're using, both buyer and seller is using me as a sounding board. It happens so much, it's not even funny. So yeah, the other things that you're going to have to do when you're appraising these plates and getting a value for them is, these are the factors I'm going to call. It's really trends, inventory, market, and seller. Might sound a little weird, but really if you're looking at a normal selling market, it's basically supply and demand, where you have your plate listed or item listed to be sold, to be viewed. And then there's a caveat with sellers I'll get into in a little bit. But let's go, I'm going to call it trends, which is demand. What are in demand types right now? Like the personalized trend, that's really hot. Graphics were hot. Porcelains are really hot. So you know that those are going to be your high demand plates, will fetch more money right now. Where other plates will not fetch a pretty penny because they're not in demand. For example, I see a lot of the mid-20s, 30s, plates not really selling for a lot. Once you hit the war years, you get a bump. After the war years, it goes back down in value. So you got to understand those trends, which using the eBay Seller Hub will help, seeing what has sold over the past 3 years, and just generally knowing your market, your other collectors, your other dealers, because dealers buy from dealers a lot. Sometimes people feel that there's certain places where it's only dealers buying from other dealers, especially online. It happens a lot, I feel. The other thing, I'm going to say inventory, which is supply. What is currently available for sale versus what's locked away and untainable. This is very important because you might have a very rare plate, but 15 other of those really rare plates have come on the market at the same time. It might sound really silly me saying that because you're going to say, well, if it's a really rare plate, it's not going to come on the market. You think that. Personally, I sell historic military vehicle plates. Got a waiting list, I get them, goes to the next person on the list. For many, many years, I can maybe obtain 1 or 2 a year if I'm really, really lucky. Then last year, someone found about 10 of them. I think it was about 10. It was a lot. And then that kind of flooded the market. Market changed a little bit. They were all kind of snatched up. And actually we're back to normal, which is weird. Usually the market doesn't go back to normal right away. For example, a few years ago, someone released 10,000 bike plates onto the market. A lot of us were like, whoo-hoo, bike prices are going to crash. We're going to be able to pick up collections really cheap. It's going to be wonderful for us collectors. And the exact opposite happened. There was a huge amount of supply, inventory, but the trend suddenly went up. The demand suddenly went up. And then in a few 6 months, prices were 2x, 3x the price. When I was a kid, those were dollar plates. Now, minimum is like $20. Like if you can get a bike plate for under $20, you're doing great. So you got to understand that. And then let's go to market. You got to understand your market, because your flea market versus your eBay versus antique stores versus license plate meets are all completely different. And we'll talk about this in another section, which is like where you're going to get into cost of setting up, cost of travel. If it's online, you're going to have, what is it, what fees are they taking, shipping costs, all of that. But we'll get in that later. But you got to realize what market you're in. So if let's say you're just a online seller, you're not going to go to meets, you're not going to go to flea markets, you're going to understand that your market is different. So for example, if you're exclusively using eBay, you're not going to list a dollar plate. It's not worth your time. It doesn't sell well. With all the fees, you're losing money. So you're going to be listing higher end plates. Maybe not top end, but you're going to be probably looking at, $10 plates and up, because by the time you add shipping, fees, and all that, that $10 plate is now $20. So you really need to have a market that can support that, which eBay is. If you take that same $10 plate that's selling for $20 because of shipping and fees to a license plate meet, it's going to sit in your bin because the market can't bear that, because it's a $10 plate and you only have 30 people who's going to look at your stuff if you're lucky, versus eBay where you can get hundreds of people looking in that plate. So you got to understand your market. You got to understand the market and what plates go with what market. And then this is a weird one, seller. So some sellers have market caps or a following that will pay more for plates due to their services that you get from that seller or the reputation of the seller. There's a very popular auction house. The owner is, I don't want to say he has a cult following, but he really does. And he gets top dollar over retail for a lot of his stuff when he posts on his seller group on Facebook, and when he runs his auctions online and his antique store. I truly believe he has a great following. He probably offers a lot of services that no one else does. If you have loyal customers, you give them what they want, they're willing to pay more. I think I'm not as in that market as him, but I do say there's people that come to me and they will pay that higher price that I have versus going elsewhere, because I will look for these plates. I will show them pictures before they have to commit. I will hold these plates for a long time. If you need a year to save up, I can do that for you. I do payment plans. I support young collectors. There's a whole bunch of things that I do that the community sees, and they support that little higher fee to help the museum run. Because I do that with historic military vehicle plates, low speed vehicle plates, and other graphics that I will go and find for people and will help them that way. So this is a pretty long section, unfortunately, but that is appraisal. And really the last section is going to be kind of the places and the fees you have to be aware of. So I'll get into that next. If all bear with me, you might want to step out and get a cup of coffee before finishing this course. This is really, at this point, going to be a lot of numbers, percentages, because you got to figure out what you're willing to bear cost-wise to sell your plates. What will the market bear of those prices, and what are you willing to do? Are you willing to travel? Are you willing to be stuck behind a computer? Are you going to send stuff out for consignment? Either a collector who knows the market, or are you going to send it to an auction house? There's a lot of things to consider. So bear with me. This is going to be a lot. So eBay. eBay, also referred to as Feebay. There's going to be a lot of things to consider. So there's a listing fee usually. There's a final value fee that includes your shipping. So in the old days, you could sell something for $10 and shipping would be $10, and they'd only take the fee from the $10 of your final price and not hit shipping. Well, now it's whatever the total is. After final like the final auction drop and shipping, it all gets hit. I've heard many stories of we're hitting between 20 and 30%, depending on what you're doing. Because let's say you want bold text, that's an extra fee. If you want a reserve, that's an extra fee. If you want priority or a sponsored, you add percents. Some people add 3% to every listing to get sponsored and boost it up into the search results. It's a great tool, but it's expensive. Something else you have to consider is when the buyer is paying with PayPal, PayPal takes an extra fee off the whole kit and caboodle too. And then you got to worry about your 1099. So depending on your tax rate, like I always consider about 22%. If you're making money that year, you're going to have to save an extra 22% of the whole total for that. Yes, you can write off the shipping, you can write off your mileage. There's a lot of things you can write off, but you have to be prepared, organized, and have that all documented. I find with some of these smaller guys, they don't do that, so that might be something that can really disturb your taxes, especially if you're a head of household and you got a wife that also has income. That talk to a tax professional. That's a big thing. So Facebook Marketplace, there are some listings that do cost money. I've heard if you list a car, they charge a fee. You can also boost, which charges a fee. You can do ads, which charges a fee. So there is a free Facebook Marketplace, but you can get into a lot of added fees to get added boosts in the listings and the searches to get your item under someone's nose, but it's going to cost you money. Now, if you want an almost free solution, there's a lot of Facebook groups, buy, sell, trade. So you can do that. Be aware if you use some of these larger auction groups, you need to tip out the group owner. So be aware. Just remember that. Some of the assigned groups do that. So you got to really read the rules. And like it's like 10% to this person, 10% to that person. There's other groups that are completely free. So you got to remember that. Now, antique stores. I've been kind of shopping around. A lot of places will charge you by the square foot for your booth. Your shelves, whatever that you're getting, they charge per square foot. So that's your first charge, and it's monthly. So you'll have that recurring monthly. You usually have to sign a contract between 3 months and a year, depending on the store. And there's added rules that we'll get into. Now that's your first fee. Second fee is a lot of them will now take a commission off the top. So you sell something for $10, it's usually between 2% and 20% I see that they'll take off the top. Just depending on where you're located and what the owner's rules are. So you might have cheap rent, but you might have a high commission at the checkout. So you got to balance that. You got to figure out what you're getting into before you agree and sign that contract. Now, a lot of the antique stores are now hitting the owner of the booth, if you're in the booth, with credit card fees, which is between 3% and 4% on top of that. So if the person pays with the card, you're getting hit with another 4% off of your price. Now, the person buying it will also get hit with tax, so you gotta also mentally think about where that's gonna set your price if you need to be competitive. So, for Wisconsin, most of us are in the 5.5% range. So if your $10 item, you gotta realize that's going to be 5.5% more on top of that for the person buying it. So it might be a great price, but then you add, well, especially your higher end items, you're going to add that sales tax on there, and people are going to go, maybe not, and put it back. So you have your booth rent, your commission, credit card fees, and some of them you got to be really careful to fine print. If the person asks, they'll take an automatic 10% off the top. So you got to be careful. You might be selling, and then suddenly, boom, it's 10% less. If your margins are very slim, you could be losing money. And a lot of these places will make you pay rent before you get your check. Some of them will take your rent out of your check, some don't, so be cautious of that. Some of them will give you a discount if you prepay for the whole year or what, so that's something to always ask about for antique stores. So there's a lot to think about that. Also, you will get hit with a 1099 if the store owner is doing what they should, because really you should be getting a 1099, because then the store owner writes all their 1099s of their booths off. Otherwise they're responsible for that tax, but they can prove that nope, that cost is on these vendors, not me. So be careful thinking about that way. Then you're also got to think about Uncle Sam, and you're going to be losing, 22% depending on what tax bracket you're in. That's where I'm going to leave off for the antique stores. Next thing to talk about is online auction sites, non-eBay. So we're thinking about like the people who post on HiBids. So there's a lot of people that will do auctions for you, but there's an initial setup fee there, and they usually take a percentage from the winnings. So, and I don't want to call the double dipping, but let's say their fee is 10%. So they'll take 10% of the final value, but they'll also add 10% onto the seller's bill, the buyer's bill, plus tax. So they're getting their money. They make a lot of money off of that. So it's usually just an auction style. So I've had very expensive plates sell for very, very cheap. I've had very cheap plates sell for crazy amount of money. I've never put plates into these auctions, but I watch them a lot. I buy from them a lot. I've gotten some pretty rare plates off of these sites. So it's kind of like an eBay, but I feel like there's less people that actually go to the auctions and buy. Another thing is, it's not set up as eBay where the app will remind you and the app will hound you and all that. If you forget, it's toast. I've had several auctions where I've just forgotten and I've lost really cool plates, and they've sold for really cheap just because there's no reminders, nothing. You got to set reminders, you got to log in. The app on your phone's not that great, so you really be at a computer. The refresh times are really weird. It doesn't auto refresh if someone outbids you. It only auto refreshes every minute. There's a lot of things I wouldn't personally put my plates up on that, because I'd rather go to eBay, probably pay a little bit more in fees, but I have a wider audience see my listings. On the flea markets. So flea markets are great, but there's a lot of factors you got to look into before. Let's just use Jefferson or Iowa as an example. So you have your money for your spots. So that's going to be upfront. That's going to be 6 months to a year ahead of time. You're putting that money in, and it's just stuck there. You're not going to get any return for that until the flea happens. Okay, so then when it comes around, you have travel. So to make use of your spots, you're going to have to take a lot of stuff. But to make a lot of stuff, you're going to have a big vehicle. If you have a big vehicle, you are probably not getting 30 miles per gallon. The ambulance, 10 miles per gallon, which is pretty good. A lot of my friends with new trucks and trailers don't get 10 miles per gallon. They get a lot less. You got travel time. So if I was an hour or 2 hours away or longer, you have that time on the road. You have fuel costs. You have a food cost. You're not home, so you can't just pop in the fridge. And then you're going to have setup fees. You might have a hotel instead of staying on ground. So you might have a campsite that you'll have to pay for. If you're lucky enough, like me, where you've built a rig where you can sleep, you can cook, you can make your coffee, that will lessen those costs, but it's more upfront. My rig, I probably have about $10,000 invested, and that's without registration plates and insurance. And that's another thing. You gotta have registration, you gotta have plates, and you have insurance. So that's another added cost, especially if that rig is really only for these flea markets, car shows, and whatnot. So you're spending all this money, step in the door, and as soon as it opens, you're at negative. You're not at zero at this point, you're at negative. So that's something you gotta realize. And as a first-year seller with any of these, people don't know where you are. You're gonna have to market to get people to come to you. Are you gonna have randos come and buy? Hopefully, but it's not a guarantee. So that's something you gotta remember is all those costs. That's flea markets and car show swaps, like Jefferson, Iola, flea markets. There's a ton of them. Elkhorn is a big one. Princeton. Those would be non-plate, non-car show flea markets. The next kind of thing to look at is license plate meets. We have Alpha Regional and Alpha National. Which I'm going to lump into one big category here because you have to have your Alpha membership, which is minimum of $36 a year to be able to even have the privilege of going to any of those meets. And then that's for convention, national convention. With national convention, there's a door fee just to step in the door, or you're going to have to pay for tables. And if you want more than one table, there's an added fee. If you want a souvenir plate, there's a fee. There's a lot of fees just to get going with that one. And it's the same thing. You're going to have travel costs. You're going to have food costs, hotel costs, fuel costs, insurance, registration, whole 9 yards. So that's something you got to really think about especially if you're switching from hobby to business. If this is a hobby, you really don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff. And then if you're doing a regional meet, some clubs require you, or at least as a courtesy, you should be in that club too. For example, Fairyland. So that's another $25. Right now. And then there is a table fee, an entry fee, all that. At least with Dairyland, you get a free lunch and you get breakfast snacks. That's not very common anymore from what I've been told from other regional people at leadership. That's not a common thing anymore. So there's all that upfront costs to step in the door. If you're using this as a social event, then this is not really a big deal. But if you're doing this as a business, as a hobby plus, these are factors you need to consider. Now, another thing is independent license plate meets. There's some of us, like DJ and myself, where we host independent license plate meets. Most of them are much more reasonable than Alpha conventions and Alpha regionals. It's a lot less cost. DJ Adams, I think his are under $5. It's completely insane. I don't know how he rents a hall that cheap, but it's Iowa, I guess. I have a facility where I can host, so my good weather meets are free. I accept donations, of course, and then I provide coffee and donuts and whatnot. Just to help bring in more people. More people, you have more sellers, you have more buyers. It benefits everybody. And I do have a paid event every year in the wintertime for $5 to cover heat. So there's that. But as an independent person, independent meet host, when you're going to that kind of stuff, yeah, you don't have to have a Jerryland membership or an Alpha membership. I don't require membership fees, none of that. So you'll save costs there, but you'll have travel, accommodations. Personally, I let people sleep here for free. I let you bring camping trailers, tents. We have heat in the museum and AC in the museum. So I let people sleep in the museum where it's comfortable. I let people sleep in the house. We have 3 couches that we fill up. We have at least 1 air mattress still. So we do all that to accommodate, to make it more accommodating for people and lessen that cost and that burden. And of course, there's also private sales, behind closed door sales that you got to consider, which one person might have to travel, they might come to you, so that might be a little bit easier on your budget to have people come over, look through your stuff, do deals that way. But yeah, that's where your markets are. There's not really a lot more markets at this point. I'm trying to build a school community which will have a market, especially for those 3-year and newer plates, because a lot of places are banning that, especially eBay. That's a big no-no. Some of the new Facebook communities are banning non-expired plates and plates not expired over 3 years. So I'm trying to build that school to accommodate that hole that we have right now. But there's really no other places you can really sell plates and collectibles unless you want to really open a brick and mortar store, which the costs are completely insane. I'm not gonna lie. Seeing these antique stores open, these comic book stores, video game stores, that's a lot of overhead. A lot of overhead. You're locked into a region. You're locked into maybe a 1 to 5 year lease. It's commercial, so it's usually a lot more than what you see. Even like this facility here, it's wonderful. It's on our own land, but thinking about increased taxes of this being built as it is, the cost of renovating this to have the insulation, the walls, the heat, the AC, the upgraded electrical, it's a lot. There's a lot of costs running this museum before I even click on the lights. So yeah, you gotta also think about that when you're setting this up. So yeah, that is this piece of the puzzle. And I think we'll go off with the conclusion next. So here's the summary of all this. With this course, you should be able to not only understand what you have to research, understand how to appraise your plates. You need to understand your factors, as in your trends, your inventory, your market, and who you are. And then also where you're selling at. Online, physical, are you using someone's business, all that. And then also understanding taxes on top of it. So please contact your tax representative and make sure you know what might happen if you rack up a big 1099 on eBay or at an antique store and all that. So there's really a lot of factors to consider in all of this. But hopefully you can go through this at your leisure, go back, watch this a couple times, read through the handouts and the tools, and see where you're at. Hopefully I'll have a very well detailed guide of eBay and what the current fees are and all that. Unfortunately, that will get dated due to PayPal raising their fees and eBay raising their fees, and understanding each antique store is very different and they're each take a different percent, and some do commission, some do not, some charge all the fees, some charge less fees, all that. But I'll break that down as clearly as possible, and you can use it as a starting chart. So if you want to check the eBay fees and then go and check your local antique store to see what would be the better deal, and if you think you have a better market locally than online, that's something to factor in. And also it depends on what you're selling. If you're selling huge things, okay, an antique store is a lot better because people come in, they have their cars right there. With online, there's a lot of shipping, a lot of added cost, and people don't like that. So yeah, but read through everything. I have that dedicated email, so you can reach out with questions, concerns. You can send me photos of I don't know what this is. If it's Wisconsin, I'll probably be able to help lickety split. If it's not Wisconsin, I will probably have to ask people, or I will maybe not be able to help, but I'll hopefully point you in the right direction. Especially foreign plates. I have a guy, I go, hey, he's the nicest guy in the world, go talk to him. Or, oh, you're looking for Tennessee. Well, I got this guy, his dad was the Tennessee collector, go talk to him. He's going to give you more information than I can. Especially when you get in the oddball types, the state shapes and all that. I can tell you that they're worth a lot, but I can't tell you, is it $1,000 plate or is it $100 plate? But Wisconsin, again, I can tell you that almost instantly. So, anyway, if you have any questions, concerns, please reach out. Updates, we'll figure that out as we go. If there's any major breaking news of new places to sell, or new ways to market your wares, or new appraisal tools that come out. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for buying this course. It means a lot. It supports me. It supports the museum. It keeps everything running. I'll see you later. Bye.